Kira, arguably the most popular anime serial killer with over 135,412 confirmed kills. In bizarre accidents caused by an unseen force described as death itself in Final Destination. But one thing that no one has looked into is if Kira could outsmart death. I wish I could tell you that answer, but you'll have to stick around with me until the end for my answer because it's a lot more difficult to figure out than you would think. Let's start with what makes Light so different from your average Final Destination victim. Most people who cheat death end up running around like headless chickens, making stupid decisions that basically gift wrap them for death. But Light Yagami, not so much. This is a guy who went toe-to-toe with L, the world's greatest detective, and had him eating cake out of his hand. Literally. Light's analytical mind processes information at a level that borders on precognitive. Where typical Final Destination victims see random accidents, Light would automatically start mapping patterns, calculating probabilities, and forming counter strategies. But here's the real kicker, Light's psychology. Most Final Destination victims break down in tears, making them an easy target. But Light exhibits all classic traits of antisocial personality disorder. He understands fear, but doesn't actually feel it. Death's psychological warfare would basically bounce off him like bullets off Superman. The dude literally believed he became God. You think a dude with that level of an ego would accept that some invisible force has predetermined his death? I don't think so. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. The death note itself seems useless against death, right? You can't exactly write death in a notebook and expect results. No. You don't have a face, you don't have a name, there's no kill. But the death note has one critical feature that everyone overlooks. It doesn't just kill people, it can control their actions before death. Light could potentially identify key human players in Death's Rube Goldberg setups and neutralize them. The death note can't make people do impossible things, and death often involves purely physical chain reactions without human intervention. Not exactly a foolproof strategy, but it's something. What truly sets Light apart isn't his intelligence or his death note, it's his strategic thinking. Remember how he manipulated Ray Pember and the entire FBI? Or even how he used Misa as a pawn? Light doesn't just react to threats, he builds elaborate multi-layered plans. He'd approach death not as a victim running from death, but as a chess player trying to checkmate his opponent. The average Final Destination character spends most of their time in panic mode. Light would spend his time setting up human shields, testing Death's patterns, and looking for exploitable loopholes. Death might be playing checkers, but Light's playing 4D chess. But here's where things get really interesting. Light's psychological profile actually gives him an advantage that no other Final Destination character has. And if you think his intelligence is his greatest weapon against death, wait until you see how the newest Final Destination film completely changes the game. Final Destination Bloodlines introduced a game-changing new rule that would make Light Yagami absolutely lose his mind. Previously, Death just targeted survivors of previous premonitions. It wants your entire bloodline. Everyone descended from someone who cheated death is marked. It's not just about surviving yourself anymore. It's about the elimination of your entire genetic legacy. For Light Yagami, who literally wanted to create a new world order as Kira, this is devastating. Even if he somehow survived Death's immediate attempts, any future pawns, followers, or legacy he establishes would be systematically wiped out. Death wouldn't just be killing Light. It would be erasing his entire new world before it could even begin. Imagine spending years crafting the perfect plan for world domination, only to figure out some cosmic force has set a generational curse on you and everything you touch. Talk about a bad day at the office. Bloodlines also dropped another bombshell that would completely change Light's strategic approach. Remember William Bloodworth, the creepy mortician, played by Tony Todd, who seems to know everything about death, and rest in peace to the actor. Turns out he's not Death's agent, as many fans theorized for years. He's actually another survivor awaiting his turn on Death's list. He's a victim with decades of observation and research, not some supernatural authority. For Light, this revelation is crucial. It means there's no negotiation with death, no cosmic authority to appeal or manipulate. It's just an implacable force working through the laws of physics and probability. Light would have to rely on his own observations and no Shinigami rules to bend. The most intriguing revelation in Bloodlines is that Kimberly Corman from Final Destination 2 actually ended up surviving. And we're talking decades after her brush with death. Her survival method? Clinical death and resurrection. She drowned herself and was revived, essentially resetting death. This is the only confirmed long-term escape method in the entire franchise. For a methodical planner like Light, this would be invaluable information. But Bloodworth also warns you that a failed resurrection attempt will just make Death way more angry at you. He'll take it more personally, if you will, leading to even more brutal outcomes. Light would be making a calculated gamble, and for once, he wouldn't be the one stacking the deck. But just when you think Light might have a chance, Death's true nature in Bloodlines changes everything. The Bloodline curse would destroy Light's entire plan for a new world. Now let's analyze exactly how Light would handle some of Death's craziest kills, and whether Kira could actually survive. Let's examine the inciting disaster from Bloodlines, the Skyview restaurant tower collapse from 1968. Iris Campbell experiences a premonition of the tower's catastrophic structural failure during a celebration. The disaster begins with subtle signs, water glasses vibrating, small cracks appearing, before escalating to full structural collapse, killing killing dozens of people. Here's how Light would analyze this. First, unlike most Final Destination victims, Light would actually try to think of something to do instead of just reacting and being like, oh my god, I'm gonna die, oh no, and then they don't even think of anything to do. Light would methodically catalog every detail, the specific sequence of failures, the timing between events, and the positioning of survivors. His analytical mind would convert a chaotic vision into actionable intelligence. His counter strategy would be multi-layered. Light would just evacuate. He'd use the Death Note to create controllable evacuations through key personnel. Building managers discover critical structural flaws, initiates emergency evacuation protocol, ensures all guests exit safely, then dies of a heart attack after confirming the building is empty. He'd establish a perimeter of safety, not just escaping the immediate disaster zone, but calculating the potential radius of secondary hazards like falling debris or gas lines exploding. Light would document everything about the premonition and subsequent events, creating a detailed record to help identify patterns in death, something no previous Final Destination character has done effectively. But here's where Bloodlines introduces a terrifying twist. Even if Light managed to get out of this unscathed, he was perfectly fine, death would follow his bloodline. This generational curse would follow all of the people that he saved that day, as Kira would potentially become a target, unraveling his new world order person by person. Light's meticulous planning might save him from the tower collapse, but he'd soon discover he's not just fighting for survival, he's fighting for his entire legacy. Next, let's look at one of Death's most popular kills, the tanning bed deaths from Final Destination 3. The girls place their drinks on a cooling unit, causing condensation. This water drips onto the electrical controls, short-circuiting them, increasing the temperature. Meanwhile, a shelf collapses, blocking the tanning bed lids, trapping them inside as they burn alive. Here's how Light would analyze this. First, he'd recognize a pattern of small coincidences building up, the shelf wobbling slightly, the positioning of drinks, the faulty wiring. Light's hyper-attention to detail would spot these anomalies when others wouldn't. Then we come up to his strategy once more. If he identified the human element like the salon employee who failed to tighten the shelf properly, he could use the Death Note to eliminate that person with specific instructions. Dies of heart attack after thoroughly securing all shelves and checking electrical systems. Light would likely travel with a hand-picked entourage whose actions he could predict or control. No random variables. He'd use the Death Note to create safe witnesses, writing instructions for people to observe him constantly but from a safe distance, reporting any unusual patterns or potential hazards. But here's the catch with Final Destination. Death adapts. If Light simply evades an initial kill, Death will just reconfigure his environment. This is where Light's ego becomes a liability. He'd assume his first encounter strategy worked because he outsmarted Death, and he's also just super egotistical and narcissistic. He's actually crazy in the anime if you haven't seen it. Of course you've seen it. You're watching this video. Light wouldn't realize this, but Death would be forced to just change tactics. Classic Light, he's just super overconfident. The same flaw that eventually led to his downfall at the end of the show. Now let's analyze one of Bloodline's most gruesome deaths. Howard Campbell's suburban lawnmower death. Lawnmowers are scary. I was mowing the lawn yesterday and I almost took my own foot off. In this sequence, Howard is in his backyard when multiple hazards align. A carelessly placed rake, scattered glass shards from a broken bottle, and a malfunction hose that suddenly explodes with pressure. This all adds up to an electric self-propelled lawnmower that activates and runs over his face. The weird part about this is Howard has generations removed. The initial disaster was decades ago, but Death still won't give up on getting everyone. What Light would do is he'd immediately recognize the danger isn't just to himself, but to everyone connected to his cheating of Death. His Kira crusade, which involves sparing certain people while eliminating others, would create a complex web of modified destinies. And you might be asking yourself, how would he counter this? Well, I don't know if you could believe me, but lawnmowers are pretty easy to fight back against. Light would attempt to document and predict who might be on Death's extended list. He'd use the Death Note to create a network of observers and protectors. Security specialists monitor Howard Campbell's home for safety hazards, removes dangerous objects, disable automated equipment, then dies of a heart attack after ensuring area is secure. But Bloodlines showed us that this approach is ultimately futile. Death evolves and adapts across generations, finding new paths to its target. Light's attempt to control every variable would be like trying to plug holes in a sinking ship. Each solution creates new vulnerability. The psychological horror for Light would be unprecedented. A mind that craves absolute control confronted with a force that operates across generations, targeting not just him but potentially everyone his actions have ever influenced. It's the perfect counter to Light's God complex, showing him that true power extends past a single lifetime, something that he can never achieve. Now let's examine Luis Romero's death in Final Destination 3, the weightlifting accident. Luis is crushed by weights when a decorative sword slices through the cables on his machine. The sequence involves multiple factors: his aggressive lifting, shaking the wall, the poorly secured swords, and his own cocky attitude making him ignore warning signs. Light would definitely identify the structural vulnerabilities immediately: the vibration-sensitive wall decorations, the machine's maintenance status, the physics of the weight mechanism. You might be asking yourself though, how would Light counter this? He's definitely not in the gym. He's sitting there just taking potato chips and eating them. Light would use a Death Note to ensure anyone who entered the gym before him conducted thorough safety checks. He'd write, "Gym manager inspects all equipment, secures all wall decorations, then dies of a heart attack in the staff room." Or maybe let's be a little more unique. Maybe he dies of, I don't know, constipation. Who knows? It's cold, but it's effective. But here's where Bloodlines adds a horrifying twist. Death isn't just about the current list, it's generational, as we have said before. Even if Light successfully navigates the immediate threat, Death would target anyone connected to his legacy. Imagine Light using the Death Note, he's created this perfect world of his, only for Death to systematically eliminate everyone he's influenced or saved through his actions as Kira. His entire life's work would unravel person by person. But you want to know what's most terrifying about this matchup? Light Yagami and Final Destination's death are mirror images of each other. Both deliver ironic death to those they target. Both operate by rules that seem arbitrary to outsiders. Both are meticulous planners with a flair for the dramatic. Seriously, look at this dude. Get up. The difference is that Death's design is truly inescapable. Light may be a self-proclaimed god, but he'd eventually learned what every Final Destination character discovers. You can run, you can fight, you can even die and come back, but death always collects its dues. Sometimes the most brilliant minds can be undone by something as simple as a cup of water in the wrong place at the wrong time. And hey, thank you for sticking around. Before you go to bed, make sure you tighten that shelf above your head real tight. And make sure you like and subscribe because that'd be pretty cool. And check out this video right now because if you like this one, you're gonna love this one.